Hey, Steve Bunin here, King 5 Mornings. Glad you're with us on Facebook Live as we're going to now unite alcohol and home buying. You really can't beat it. No, but we have a professional here, Christian Nossum, joining us. Tell me, the name of your website is?
Well, the home buyer class website is beersandhomebuying.com.
Okay,
Pretty
so
simple to remember.
Beersandhomebuying.com.
Yes.
What is it?
It is basically, well, we have a class usually every month, somewhere around Seattle at a bar generally. So we just did one last week at Buckley's in Belltown. We've done them at Brave Horse. We've done them at the Cedar Room in Ballard, Cactus. I mean, we've been all over the place. So.
And this is an opportunity for people out there to get information on the real estate market, but to do it at a low-key, sort of low-pressure environment. So, by the way, if you have any questions, send them here, and Kristen, our executive producer, who's the photographer as well right now, will shout them out. So definitely give us your questions. So what would you say is the most common question you get at one of these sessions?
Do I have to have 20% for a down payment is by far the biggest question, and it's a big no. You don't need 20%. You can often have 3.5%, 5%.
Even in this market, because I mean, as someone who's buying, like if we hadn't put down anywhere near 20%, it'd be like, I got 7 other offers and they're putting down even more. So how do you get around that is if you are pre-underwritten for your loan, not just pre-approved. There's a huge difference. But if you're pre-underwritten for your loan, you can actually waive your financing because you know for a fact you're already approved for the loan. And at that point, it doesn't matter what your down payment is because they're not looking at that. They don't even see what your down payment is. So you're basically on par with an all-cash offer at that point. Wow. All right. Yeah. So what else? Okay. So down payment is one major issue. Is unreasonable expectations another issue? What would you say is another thing that's high on the docket for you?
A lot of people don't know that. I mean, some people still get that think, you know, the asking price is the actual price of what the home's going to sell for, and that's completely false, especially in this market. Most homes at this point are selling for about $100,000 over asking. So you got to assume, and you got to go into it assuming the house is going to sell for about $100,000 more than what they're asking. And if you know that up front, it's a little less shocking when you're in the process trying to figure it out.
How has this? I don't know how long you've been doing this, but how has it changed in the time that you have been?
I've been doing it for over 12 years now. I started when it was starting to tail up, and then it crashed. and it's clearly a lot different from back then. But even when it was hot back in 2005, 6, 7, you weren't able to really, at least from what I know, you weren't able to get underwritten. At least no one was doing it.
Yeah.
And it's even more competitive at this point than it was back then. But the other thing, too, is now you actually have to qualify for the loan. It's crazy. Back then you didn't. You could literally sign your name on a piece of paper and get whatever loan amount you wanted.
So how that worked out.
Yeah, exactly. So thankfully you can't do that anymore.
So Jerry wants to know, is it smart to waive inspection?
I never recommend waiving the inspection.
I'm not even an expert.
You can definitely do a pre-inspection. So that's when you inspect the home up front prior to making your offer. And if you do that, then you know what issues there are or aren't. And then you could waive the inspection because you know at that point that there's issues or not issues.
I'll tell you, we've been like walking into houses that we were interested in and found out later that people did buy like all cash offers, no inspection.
I know.
And for your average buyer, you just can't. I can't compete with that, right?
It's crazy.
So what do you tell people who are in that situation? Just wait for a different house. Or,
yeah. I mean pre-inspect and you know, again, the separations and the preparation, just like our good friend Russell Wilson always says. So if you know ahead of time what the steps are, you can be prepared. You know it's going to cost you around $250 to $500 for every house that you pre-inspect.
Kristen, we have more input?
Yes, so I have to ask this one. I'm sorry, I can't help it. Jennifer wants to know, should I sell most of my farm animals before listing? Would pigs, goats, ducks, and chickens scare people?
I think you trade them.
Someone
out there needs a wife, I'm sure. You can trade them.
Probably depends, right? I mean, I'm
not a farm expert on that one, so I'm going to...
But if you sell them to a farmer, maybe they'd be more interested in that.
Exactly.
That is one thing as in terms of selling, so we're selling the house that we're coming from, but you got to make it appealing, generic, but still look like it's being lived in. You don't want to have an empty house, right, when you're selling?
Correct.
Do you deal with a lot of people who are trying to sell, and they also come to you for information? All right, so what would be a piece of advice that you would give that is pretty effective for anyone who's trying to sell a home?
Well, you still want to make it open. So I always recommend declutter, and I call it pre-pack. So everything that you're not going to use over the next, 6 months, 3 months even, put it away. So all your holiday decorations, all your winter coats, if it's summertime, everything like that, pre-pack it, get rid of it, put it in a storage unit or a pod or whatever. Clean up the house as much as possible on the kitchen counters. Remove everything, even the coffee maker, the toaster, everything you even use every day, even if you're living there. Whenever you need it, bring it back out, put it back on.
Because it makes the house look bigger.
It makes it look much bigger.
And I've also heard take away all the personal things. The picture of you and your wife and the kids. They don't want to see your kids. They want to see a generic picture, like in the when you bring.
And I go back and forth on that, to be honest with
Why?
you. A lot of people do recommend that, but I actually think that it's helpful because people want to see, like, oh, I want to live in this house because they seem like they're a cool family too, and we're a cool family, so I can see myself living here. So,
all right,
yeah.
Yes, Kristen.
On that same note, Bob wants to know, is it smart to hire a stager?
It usually yes, but it kind of depends on the house. And sometimes we can use the furniture that you already have in the house versus you moving everything out and then moving in stuff that looks very similar. That just doesn't make sense. So a lot of times it makes more sense to try and utilize what you already have, and some stagers will actually do that. They'll help you figure out what you can keep.
That's what I would think is that I'm a big believer in like a little bit of money here to make more on the back end. If you tell me that I got to pay somebody $200 to help me stage the house, but I can sell it for $10,000 more.
Oh yeah,
it's easy. To me, it's just an easy calculation, right? You don't want to be throwing money away, but if it's really going to make a difference. Outside of the house too, do you help people landscaping? Like
curb appeal is huge. Okay. So the easiest thing. So if you've been looking at houses, you know that you walk up to the door. Your real estate agent unlocks the door with the little key box thing. It takes about 30 seconds to a minute for that whole process. And meanwhile, you're standing behind them, and you're standing at the front door for about a minute. And what are you doing? You're looking around at stuff. If you see cobwebs everywhere and a burnt-out light and maybe mold or moss growing on the siding or something like that.
That's overflowing.
Yeah, all that stuff. So that very first impression right there, make that look 100% perfect. That's the simple curb appeal question.
Sorry, we got a lot of questions coming in. Debbie wants to know, what advice would you give someone who's interested in getting into the real estate field?
Don't.
Hey, the mortgage are going to pay.
It's hard, and you work a lot. Everyone thinks, you make your own schedule, because you kind of do. But it's like I get to choose which 80 hours a week I work. That's really what it feels like.
And you're on call all the time. I have friends of mine
call.
who do this. If I'm by my home and I need you at 9 o'clock, I need my question answered.
Yeah, and that's not uncommon whatsoever.
Yeah.
I mean, I get texts at 10, 11 o'clock at night, 7 in the morning, weekends. I mean, I have to be available during the day when you guys are all at work. Maybe not you guys, because you're at work.
We're always at work.
But I have to be available during the working hours. Yeah. And then after work, that's when everyone wants to go look at houses, so I have to be available then. And then on the weekend, I got to be available then, because that's when they want to look at stuff. So basically, I always have to be available.
Yeah. What else you got, Kristen?
I think I got one more good one. I'm hunting. Hold on. Oh, Laura wants to know, selling this spring or next spring, how long do you think we can expect to see these insane bidding wars?
That's a tough one.
That's
so
$64,000.
Exactly. So what I like to say is we know what the market is now. We don't know what it's going to be in a year. If now is good enough, go for it now versus the maybe in a year. It also depends on what your next step is and what your long-term goals are. But I mean, I can help you. Reach out to me, awesomeawesome.com.
But Seattle, I think, is different. Correct me if I'm wrong, but from friends of mine in the business, they would say, like, we moved from Houston, Texas, and there, when there's booms or busts, you can trace it to the oil and who's hiring. Here, Microsoft is hiring, Amazon is hiring, Google is hiring, right? I mean, these are people coming in; they're able to buy houses that have purchase power. Yeah, and that's not a bubble that's going to burst. Microsoft isn't going under.
And you see all the cranes that we have behind us in South Lake Union, and we have more cranes than anywhere else in the U.S. right now. That generally means 3 to 5 years of economic growth. Mm-hmm. So, based on just that fact alone, 3 to 5 years, that's a good number of years while we still have this boom. But interest rates are probably going to go up. They have been going up already this year. There's just a lot going on that's kind of in Seattle's favor.
Right.
that's going to continue this growth. I just don't know if it's going to be as insane. I hope it's not going to be as insane with all the bidding wars and $100,000 more all the time and all that stuff. But you just never know.
Yeah. Seller's perspective, good for you. Buyer's perspective, it's pretty tough. When you say 3 to 5 years, it's only going to get worse. My eyes go like that.
I know.
We're closing on a house pretty soon, so we're excited about that. Kristen, do I have a live shot or I'm good?
You're good.
Okay.
Bob wants to know, we are talking houses, but how's the condo townhouse market? Does it differ?
Townhouse is almost as competitive, if not as competitive, as a single-family house. Condos a little bit different, not as crazy, but still. I mean, it depends on where you're at. If you're in the heart of the city, it's still going to be pretty crazy. If you're in Shoreline or Lake Forest Park or Edmonds or something like that, it's not going to be 10 offers. It's going to be maybe 2 or 3 or 4. So it's still competitive, but maybe not super duper competitive.
As we hunt for more questions on Facebook Live, keep them coming if you can for Christian, or, well, don't ask me any questions. I guess the question that I have is, where are the pockets of hope? Like, do you have to go as far south as Tacoma, north to Mount Vernon, Duval? How far do you have to go to get a good value for your home if you're your average purchaser?
That's a loaded question.
Yeah. The only kind of
way to throw it on me. All right. So I used to say in Seattle that North Beacon Hill was like my favorite spot, and I think it was 8 or 9 years ago, I wrote a blog post about why I'm obsessed with North Beacon Hill, and I lived there at the time, and it's since blown up.
Really?
There's no real, at least in Seattle, there's no real pockets left of just awesomeness. It's too populated. There's too many people that want to be there.
How far away do you have to go? Is it like 10 miles, 20 miles to get that sort of value?
No, I mean, you can still get some deals just outside of Seattle. So Shoreline, Edmonds, Mill Creek, Bothell. There's a lot of new construction going on up there. And generally, this is kind of a tip that most people don't know about. Generally, new construction sells for their actual asking price. So with new construction, you're not necessarily going up $100,000.
Why is that? Because they've invested, they want to get rid of it.
Well, imagine even in Seattle, where it used to be one house, they tear it down, they put up 4 townhomes. Now they have 4 townhomes, all in the market at the exact same time. The builder wants to get rid of those as soon as possible. So instead of one very similar house, they got 4 very similar homes, which if there's 10 buyers, those 10 buyers now fight over those 4 homes versus 1.
Right.
So if you jump on it right away, you can actually get a little deal.
Good tip.
So new construction can sometimes be a deal.
Awesome. Christian, thank you very much. Once again, if people want to get loaded while they talk about real estate, no, I'm kidding. But it's houses. No, it's beer and houses.
Beersandhomebuying.com. I'll take care of the website.
Yeah, you do the website.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Thanks for being a part of this on Facebook Live.